Mr. Clerk, good to go?
Yep.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. This is the Environmental and Flood Issue Subcommittee. Today's date is Tuesday, December 9th, 2025. We have one item on the agenda, discussion municipal fossil fuel building demonstration program, which was forwarded to the subcommittee by a motion by Councilor Janess. Roll call, please, Mr. Clerk.
Council Belanger.
Here.
Council Robinson.
Here.
Council Yem.
Here.
3 present.
Thank you. So I think we'll open up the meeting. This program we know very little about. So let's get to know the ins and outs of this pilot program and who's better than that, than the soldier for sustainability, I'll call it. General. To general. No, excuse me. Thank you, Councilor. Catherine, I think we'll open it up with you and, to offer the subcommittee some insight on what this pilot program is all about. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Chair Belanger, and thank you, councilors, for having me here. I'm here this evening to speak about the fossil fuel-free demonstration program in the Commonwealth. There was a motion by Councilor Janess as to writing a letter to the state delegation to express Lowell's interest in participating in this program. And before we do that, I think it would just be helpful to look at what the pilot is, who's participating currently, what some of the challenges and opportunities are with that. So by way of background, as part of the Climate Act of 2022, Act Driving Clean Energy and Offshore Wind, in Section 84 of Chapter 179, the fossil fuel-free demonstration program came into existence. As a part of this, its purpose was to require that any new construction or major renovations in up to 10 pilot communities would have to be fossil fuel free for space conditioning and domestic hot water, with only limited exceptions, and a process where you'd have to codify those exceptions. Participation was also contingent on meeting affordable housing production benchmarks. So who's currently participating in this pilot program? You have Arlington, Newton, Acton, Aquinnah, Brookline, Cambridge, Concord, Lincoln, Lexington. The 10th pilot community was West Tisbury, but they actually withdrew their application due to an inability to meet the required housing eligibility thresholds under the law. So Northampton and Somerville both applied to become a substitute community. Northampton was ultimately chosen as that substitute community because of electrical grid constraints within the Somerville area. So in September of 2025, the Department of Energy Resources issued their first report on the demonstration project. However, this report mostly just talked about what the pilot is, how it came into existence, how communities were accepted, and it didn't include any data such as energy use, operational costs, housing production impacts, and housing affordability, including affordability outcomes on low and moderate income households. With this limited data set, I think it would be challenging for Lowell to really petition to be a part of a pilot project like this, because we just don't know how it's going to impact all of those different aspects of things. So, and just to say how very different Lowell is from the other communities that were selected, I created a basic chart sort of comparing population-wise, median income-wise, percentage of rental households versus owner-occupied household, and other kinds of things like that. There are no gateway cities in the 10 pilot communities, so there are always intrinsic challenges that come along with being a gateway city. Opportunities as well, but definitely challenges. The median income for all of the communities, with the exception of Northampton, are in the 6 digits, with the wealthiest community having a median income of around $219,000. That's Lexington. By comparison, Lowell's median income is around $76,000. Most of the communities have a high percentage of owner-occupied homes. And the communities that were selected for the pilot, the only ones that are majority renters are Brookline and Cambridge, but of course, Brookline and Cambridge have very different tax bases and demographics versus Lowell. So there are also some other challenges that come along with this. One of the big things that concerns me about some of the discussions around potential enhancements of our building codes and potential participation in projects and initiatives like this are the impacts of construction-related costs when it comes to housing, and particularly the unknown impacts on the tariffs that have been implemented since the start of the new administration. I think we haven't really adequately seen how those kinds of additional costs are passed along to the consumers and the potential owners or rentals in these types of units. And so I think there could be challenges there. I think there can also be challenges in terms of the grid capacity. This is a larger systemic conversation that the investor-owned utilities are having. We have these kind of competing interests of, making sure we have a reliable grid while we move everything towards electrification. It obviously is going to take a much more robust infrastructure to be able to support that, but in the transition time, there may be delays if you are trying to build out these types of electrified facilities in areas that are already grid constrained. National Grid has a map of different grid constraints within the city, and there are a lot of our feeders that are at capacity or near capacity, particularly in the downtown core in Lowell. And like I mentioned, with the substitute communities, that was one of the reasons that they didn't have Somerville participate in the demonstration program. There are also some concerns around who's going to pick up these extra kinds of costs. There are different incentive programs and different types of funding mechanisms that have looked at creating either more stringent codes or making sure that you are participating in this fossil fuel-free demonstration. Some of that funding has gone away. Some of it is at risk. Changes in the federal level around tax credits are also influencing how people electrify and how we move towards a decarbonized type of system. And so with those kinds of challenges present, I think it would be very hard for Lowell and our community with our current constraints and demographics to fully participate in this. With that being said, if it is the council's wish to have the Commonwealth think about things they need to consider as they look to expand the demonstration project or as they look to reach their larger electrification and decarbonization goals, I'm certain that we could put together some recommendations, particularly with a lens of environmental justice communities like Lowell, gateway cities like Lowell, constrained utility places like Lowell. But with that, I would be happy to answer any questions from the subcommittee and or anyone else that has come in since then.
Thank you, Catherine. Very informative tidbit. Thank you very much. Because I didn't know much, little or nothing about this, and it's very interesting. But I'll start off with a question. So I'm trying to wrap around that. If we don't have the capacity, grid capacity, and this initiative is supposed to wean off fossil fuels, what isn't that? It kind of like defeats the purpose of what this is trying to accomplish. I don't quite comprehend why this is weaning off fossil fuels. So tell me how why you don't I know where you stand. You'd love to see this come into fruition, obviously, but why Lowell's not a good candidate, if you don't mind, if you can elaborate just a little more.
I'd be happy to elaborate on that, Counselor. So it depends on the area that you're looking at. If you're looking at the Commonwealth at large, not all feeders are constrained the way that you get, particularly in dense urban areas like Lowell, and not all areas of Lowell have the same level of constraints. For example, we had applied for a grant recently to decarbonize one of our schools that we're renovating. And in that particular area, over near kind of the north campus of UMass Lowell, their feeders do have additional capacity where you could do things like that. So in different areas of the city, it might not be as constrained as the downtown core, but there are a lot of areas within Lowell that are very constrained. The investor-owned utilities are aware of these types of constraints. They have long-term plans to start to address it, and not only by building the infrastructure and kind of building the cost of modernizing the grid in that way, but also by doing things like adding smart controls, demand and flexible response, and the different types of things that you have there. But it is a very lengthy exercise, and it'll ultimately be a very expensive exercise.
Got it.
And so I think it just depends on the area that you're looking to develop.
I see.
Another thing that's not really factored into this that might make a difference is it'll be interesting to see how the network geothermal system of National Grid and Eversource, how those demonstration projects go.
Excellent. Thank
Yes.
you very much. Councilor Yam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Moses, for the extensive explanation. I did take a look at the, the law, and I agree with you that that law, it's not ready. You stated the grid issues, but here's my question. You may know the answer. Is there a benefits if the 10 cities that will participate in the pilot program, do they receive any particular funding or something from the state?
So the way that the program is currently set up, they may even be at a disadvantage when it comes to funding, because the demonstration communities, one of the things that's being talked about in order to increase affordability and things like that around energy is the Mass Save program may not be available to help to build out infrastructure within these fossil fuel-free demonstration communities. That's not fully codified yet, but it is something that has been put on the table. So it would be another potential negative impact of participating. Like I said, the city can make recommendations about things that DOER should consider in revamping the program or looking to expand it, but those are some of the concerns right now, but it doesn't really put you at any special advantage in terms of state funding.
Thank you for the answer, Mr. Chair. If I may follow up, to me, it's a great, it's a great program. Try to get away from the fossil fuel, and then I know the city of Lowell, we have the sustainability, the geo department, and our goal to be the carbon neutral in 2040 or 2050, right? 2050. So how do we achieve that is a question. And this program, if the law is the grid is available, it will be good for us to kind of look into it. But the cost of complying with this demonstration program, it seems like it's more than we can afford. My personal experience is that National Grid promoting electrification, and then I do a renovation of multifamily, and the National Grid give an incentive to convert it to all electric. I know the Acre Crossing is all electrification, so they get a really good rebate. So I feel that there is a volunteer program that offered by National Grid, but I do not want to see the city putting is as a mandate for new construction or a totally renovation, which add additional costs. As I mentioned, in my situation, it is additional costs because this mini splitter and all that to install and then to upgrade the electric to come to the building is also enormous as well. So, final question. So, if the city want to be, into that program, what does entail and the cost of doing that? If we were to kind of set ourselves up ready to be carbon neutral in 2050. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Great points, Councilor Yam. The Chair would like to acknowledge Councilor-elect Sean McDonough has joined us as well. Councilor Robinson, the very festive Councilor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Moses, for this information. Again, this was something that I've heard discussed. It seems like that 10 community test pilot program is full currently, with, as you mentioned, 2 alternatives applied, 1 was selected, so it seems like they've reached their 10. Hopefully we should see some data coming out of this, 6 months, year, in the near future. That was my only concern as well, is the additional upfront costs, where, for one, we're at a crisis point for the cost of rents, especially in a city like Lowell where a lot of renters, but then also purchase price for young professionals and first-time home buyers and even those looking to downsize. It's purchase price. And to kind of put a requirement, whether it's voluntary, involuntary, on developers and builders at this point in time, it's now you're looking at, I think, a cost shift again, increase in price to renters, increase in price to first-time home buyers, increase in those looking to downsize, because new construction that will start to kind of embrace these additional incentives, it's not really funded, and the infrastructure is not in place as needs before we really start pushing this initiative. If it seems like, if listening to your explanation of how this is rolled out, I think in the near future, it's definitely something to keep our eye on. And I think just at this point in time, a program like this might not make sense, especially where they already met their quota with the 10 communities willing and qualified to take part in this. So thank you again very much.
Thank you, Councilor Robin. And Councilor Robinson, thank you. I'd like to see if any members of the public have any questions or comments on this issue, on this topic. Okay. Something from Councilor Robinson's comments, I think he makes some very, very good points that although the intent here is good, the costs associated to, although, the builder will be paying it, right? But however, that does, as you mentioned in your presentation, Catherine, that this gets passed on to either the tenant or the new owners. So, I'd like to know more examples here, a little bit more from developers, see what their thoughts are and on this initiative, and what the costs associated are, and again, as Councilor Robinson alluded to, there's really no vacancies at this time, but nonetheless, it's something. Let's keep our eye on it. Initiative could improve. There could be in the future maybe grants and stipends involved. Who knows? So I think it's certainly something to keep an eye on, but definitely I need to know a little more on this issue. And I know you've done your homework, Catherine. One of you walked in here knowing next to nothing, so I know a lot more than I did just a few minutes ago. But again, love the intent. This is certainly futuristic for the city of Lowell, which we're trying to achieve our green initiatives here that you are spearheading. And I'd like to be part of that, but I think the timing of this is perhaps a little bit too premature. Any of my colleagues have any other comments? Councilor Yam.
If I may go back to my questions, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I would ask Ms. Moses to prepare maybe a one-sheet, explanations. Our position as a city, what if we want to go, so kind of a draft that say, okay, if Lowell want to be that complying with the demonstration, what does entail and the cost, kind of one sheet so that make it available to all the counselor, the new one coming in. So this way, we have something that we discuss as a committee and the recommendation, your recommendation that we're not ready. But then the second portion would be, if Lowell want to be, here are the steps that we need to take in order for us to comply with this. So if Mr. Chair doesn't mind, I would like to form it as a motion to allow.
Okay.
Right.
Motion by, you want to comment first, Councilor Robinson? Go ahead.
Thank you. To the maker of the motion, would you be okay with, I think, continuing this conversation first to at least get input from the construction development community on potential impacts before we come out with a one-page sheet with any recommendations? I think it should have as much information as possible, so that way, I mean, we still have only heard what this pilot program is about, but we haven't really seen any real solid information from communities that are actually involved in it come out yet. We haven't seen the potential impacts, as was mentioned. I think there's still, and as Ms. Moses mentioned, there's no real data on how it impacts low and middle income sections of that city. So I think we need some more data before I would request any kind of recommendation or non-recommendation, if that's okay with the maker of the motion.
Yeah, I would be happy to reach out to the development community. I'd also be happy, since this was originally a city council motion, I'd be happy to write a more formal response summarizing what we know and what we don't know, because that's the unfortunate part about it, is we, in a lot of cases, don't necessarily know what we don't know, because many of the tariffs and the impacts on construction costs have just been put in place in 2025, and we don't have a lot of real data that'll tell us what the overall impact of that is, and if that is slowing housing production in different communities just in general, much less in these types of fossil fuel communities or those with more stringent stretch codes. So if it's okay with the council, happy to keep looking and researching into this, happy to initiate those conversations within the development community. I'm also happy to just write a short response to the motion for the broader city council outlining some of these steps and some kind of future steps as we continue to move forward, if that seems acceptable.
Yes, I think so. I was just about to say that, because I think Councilor Yam and Councilor Robinson could both have their wishes, because you do have a motion response to that you are putting together, and I could include the information that he's looking for without any recommendation or vote at this time.
Yes,
So I think we
I
all
appreciate that.
satisfied.
I appreciate that. Yes, and that's the reason the request is just for informational only.
Yes.
The reason I'm saying this, because I want to be able, if things happen, position our city to be ready if there's federal and state funding for that type of initiative, that I want the city of Lowell to be in a position to capitalize on that without having to, start it from scratch. So we kind of ahead of ourselves, getting to know what you explained to us about the demonstration program, what's entailed, and what's the cost would be. So by research, providing data, all of that, it get ourselves ready. So when time come, I want Lowell to be in a position to take advantage of the future state and federal decarbonization and resiliency funding that will be coming. And that's the reason I'm asking for that information. And on top of that, I talk over and over about Lowell, the front runner city, and one of the SDG 11 is resiliency development. That would be part of that SDG 11, that city of Lowell as a front runner city. And that's what I would like to see, even though it's no requirement or anything, but by showing that we are taking initiative, we are, think ahead outside of the box to meet that. That helps us a lot in the long term as far as the city and the front runner city program. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Councilor Yam. And just to add real quick that the motion response will enlighten the full body, as well as if you could include the councilors elect too, because it's something that's more going to be down the road. But Great information, Catherine, once again. You provided everything we needed to know. So it's a good initiative certainly to keep an eye on, and we thank you. What are the wishes of the subcommittee?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by
Second.
Councilor Yam.
Yeah. Say
Mo-
All in
meeting-
favor?
All in favor?
aye.
Yep. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.